Let's talk dragons. The only creatures with more frequent flyer miles than birds and more baggage than your last relationship. For centuries, people genuinely believed these scaly sky lizards were out there, ready to roast a peasant or two. Medieval mapmakers didn't just leave blank spaces, they inked "Here be dragons," which, let's be honest, is a far spicier warning than "Uncharted," probably damp. If dragons had been real, insurance companies would have rolled out fire-breathing monster coverage way before they bothered with floods or fender benders. Enter the classic dragon-slaying saga. A snarling, treasure-hoarding beast shows up, only to get its scales handed to it by some armor-clad hero. Medieval literature practically ran on dragons. Nothing said epic quest like an angry lizard crashing your castle's property values. But then science shows up and kills the vibe. Zero fossils? Nada. Not even a suspiciously charred pile of bones. Sorry, How to Train Your Dragon fans. Turns out those brave knights were probably fleeing from oversized iguanas, not winged flamethrowers. So where did this dragon obsession hatch? Maybe someone stumbled on a massive dinosaur bone, mixed it with crocodile stories, threw in some monitor lizard gossip, and poof, dragon legend was born. Medieval scribes loved dragons as symbols of greed, evil, or just a handy excuse for bad hair days. Sorry, a dragon ate my comb. Even St. George, the patron saint of dragon slayers, probably spent more time battling bureaucracy than fire-breathing fiends. Yet dragons keep flying high, from Game of Thrones to every fantasy novel ever written. No fossil? No problem. When has reality ever slowed down a myth hungry for its next sequel? Belief in dragons merges into the idea that the Earth itself harbors mysterious creatures across its unexplored flat expanse. Hook. Picture this. Sailing off the coast, heart pounding, because you might just tumble over the world's edge, right into the waiting maw of a sea monster with questionable dental hygiene. Thankfully, there's no Yelp for the edge of the world, or it'd read, "Great view, terrible drop-off." Myth. Long before Instagram geotags spoiled all the mystery, ancient civilizations seriously debated if Earth was flat, round, or maybe a cosmic pancake. Cartographers sketched maps with sharp corners and even sharper identity crises. The Flat Earth Theory. Proof that conspiracy theories love edges you can literally stub your toe on. Facts. For centuries, the default travel plan was don't. Flat Earth models ruled the day, a mysterious disk fringed by lurking horrors. Medieval bestiaries warned of wide-eyed monsters prowling the edge, because no vacation is complete without the risk of becoming a kraken's mid-morning snack. Why risk plunging down a crocodile-infested waterfall when you could happily get lost in your own village square? Punch. Then science crashed this terrifying spa day. Enter Eratosthenes, who, armed with sticks, shadows, and some basic math, proved the Earth has curves. Not content with geometry alone, explorers like Magellan circumnavigated the globe. Did they fall off or send back kraken selfies? Nope. Just postcards saying, "Wish you were sphere." Bridge. Yet somewhere on this gloriously round planet, flat Earth societies still convene. Modern proof that, like the universe itself, ignorance is infinite. So next time your GPS says, "At the next whirlpool, make a U-turn," remember, the only thing flat these days is your phone battery. As tales of unknown beasts abound, so too do stories of knights embodying chivalry through heroic rescues. Hook. Chivalry, the ancient art of rescuing damsels, or just medieval mansplaining with a lance? Thanks to epic poems, courtly love songs, and Hollywood's obsession with distressed damsels, knights became basically equestrian Uber drivers for women in pointy hats. Facts. But in reality, far less dragon slaying, way more paperwork. Chivalry was a strict code. Loyalty to your lord, courage in battle, and importantly, refraining from stabbing your dinner companions. A challenge after one too many flagons. The goal wasn't to rescue every woman within a 5-mile radius. It was to behave like a halfway decent human with an arsenal of sharp objects. And those so-called damsels? Don't sell medieval women short. Many managed vast estates while their husbands fumbled in armor, negotiated treaties with the diplomatic grace of drunken bards, and occasionally suited up in chainmail themselves. Turns out the only thing medieval damsels really needed saving from was medieval hygiene. and abundant. Honestly, if knights spent all their time rescuing swooning ladies, who'd mow the moat? Rescue quotas sound epic in verse, but they rarely made knightly job descriptions. Bridge. So next time you think of chivalry, picture fewer fainting maidens and more knights debating whether protecting the weak meant sparing peasants or just promising not to batter down doors with a ram. Damsel saving? Mostly a medieval PR stunt, sparkly chainmail included. The valorous acts of knights often involve sacred relics believed to grant them supernatural strength in battle. Imagine heading into battle and getting a magical upgrade from your local saint's fingerbone. Picture this: peasants queued up, hoping a tap from some crusty relic might unlock invincibility, laser vision, or at least a seriously cool cape. That's the legend. According to popular myth, holy relics could turn your average mud-caked farmhand into a paladin overnight. A medieval version of downloading the latest patch before the boss fight. This whisper network of Crusader optimism promised a quick upgrade from Steve the Plow Guy to Sir Steve, now with +10 holy damage. But let's be honest, if relics really granted superpowers, medieval Europe would have looked more like the Avengers and less like a muddy traffic jam armed with pointy sticks. In reality, history was way less Marvel and way more motivational seminar. Relics were parade floats for faith, strutting ahead to boost morale and fatten donation baskets. Not magic power-ups for your sword. Knights did bring relics into battle, but mostly as spiritual insurance policies, not cheat codes for enemy decapitation. Most victories credited to divine fingernails had more to do with outnumbering the opposition, classic military tactics, or maybe just a well-timed lunch break. Still, creativity soared. Some armies claimed even splinters from the true cross could bless soldiers. Though after a while you'd suspect half the relics were just trying to avoid being sniffed by overenthusiastic pilgrims. The best supernatural claims usually popped up post-victory. We didn't win because of better strategy. Oh no, it was definitely St. Bob's toenail. So next time you spot a saint's pinky on display, remember, it's more morale boost and fundraising tool than medieval weapon mod. Sorry, Steve. The only thing you're getting is a pat on the gauntlet and a prayer. In addition to holy relics, knights donned full-plate armor, thought to render them invincible. Imagine clanking into battle dressed like a medieval tank. What could possibly go wrong? Besides, tripping on your shoelaces and flailing like a metallic beetle while your squire desperately stifles laughter. For centuries, the image of a knight in shiny plate armor has screamed invincibility. Walking fortresses patrolling the battlefield, shrugging off blades, arrows, and the occasional disgruntled goose. Hollywood and Renaissance fairs, where armored folk lumber with all the grace of caffeine-fueled gorillas, only cement this legendary myth. But let's lower the visor and face reality. Plate armor could deflect a sword and make petty pickpockets reconsider their career choices. But it wasn't bulletproof. Arrows still sought out juicy gaps, maces turned armor into a percussion set, and gravity was undefeated. One misstep, and Sir Braveheart was taking an unscheduled mud nap. As for stairs, full plate was built for knightly valor, not parkour. A tumble, and even the boldest warrior faced an existential crisis, and probably looked like an upside-down turtle. And don't forget the upkeep. Keeping that armor gleaming took daily scrubbing and dent hammering. Rust never clocked out early. Sure, you'd dazzle at the jousting tournament, but trying to use the chamber pot? Lord have mercy. When poleaxes came out to play, even the toughest knight fretted a nervous clank. And cannons? Knights pretty much agreed. Better to face a dragon's fiery breath than a direct cannonball. A scorch mark's an understandable excuse. Shrapnel, not so much. Bottom line, armor wasn't a medieval cheat code. It was a compromise. Knights were formidable, up until physics, weapons, or a slippery staircase had other plans. Beyond armor, it was commonly believed that noble birth endowed one with superior fighting abilities. Who needs training when you've got a fancy family crest and a lineage sharper than a broadsword? The world loves the myth of the noble-born warrior, genetics jackpot winners who strut out sword in hand, muscles bulging, and skills magically preloaded from their ancestors' finest tapestries. But let's hit the pause on this medieval action flick. The average noble kid's childhood was less boot camp brutal and more posh babysitting. Their idea of hardship? Enduring an itchy tunic at court, not wrestling wolves in the woods. For some, the closest thing to combat was a heroic struggle with stubborn hosiery at the annual banquet. Becoming a knight usually meant years as a page, then a squire. Sure, there was training, but many learned more about not spilling their lord's soup than the deadly art of swordplay. Occasionally, someone earned their spurs simply by surviving long enough to fetch armor without faceplanting over the family chowhound. Think less Braveheart, more Game of Thrones Butler. It didn't help that half the noble claim to martial fame came from owning armor that fit better and looked flashier. When push came to literal shove, skilled fighters emerged from all walks of life. Peasants and townsfolk sported more battle scars than noble steeds, mainly because they couldn't afford to hire someone else to slash and parry for them. Tournaments. Less gladiator bloodbath, more glamorous networking over jousting snacks. Nothing says elite warrior like hobnobbing mid-joust while professional mercenaries did the heavy lifting elsewhere. For a pretty penny, naturally. Bottom line, blue blood isn't a skill booster. You had to train, pay up, or hire someone tougher. Crest or no crest. This belief in inherent prowess set the stage for duels, which were seen as fair ways to resolve issues of honor. Few things scream gentlemanly conflict resolution, quite like two chaps in frilly shirts trying to put each other 6 feet under at dawn. Forget courtroom drama. Real adults of yesteryear settled scores with pistols at 10 paces. Because nothing says fair fight like one guy stumbling around blind without his spectacles. Myth. Duels were the original classy way to settle disputes, deadly weapons included. Offended at a garden party? No sweat. Challenge your rival to a formal shootout. Your honor's on the line, along with your vital organs. Facts. In reality, dueling was less about noble justice and more about ego-fueled posturing, especially among France's aristocrats and America's ambitious wannabes. The rules read like a legal thriller, but fairness usually hinged on whether your second was your ride or die or just the local undertaker's nephew. Dawn duels? Not a poetic choice, just so onlookers could see who'd missed and who'd landed a shot, or hit a tree. If duels were truly fair, everyone would pick their own weapon, chess set or rubber chicken. Punch. Truth is, duels weren't just about honor. They were contests of skill, nerves, and occasionally which pistol decided to misfire spectacularly. Cheating and bribery swirled through powdered wigs like a hurricane. And while knowing the rules helped, knowing the best surgeon helped even more. Influence and wealth made dueling as stable as a 3-legged chair. Honestly, most duels make modern Twitter spats look like Nobel Peace Prize ceremonies. Bridge. So next time you're feeling wronged, maybe just stick to keyboard battles. Safer, less laundry, and the only thing you'll shoot is a witty comeback, with all your organs intact. Underlying these duels was the expectation that knights remained unwaveringly loyal to their lords throughout. Picture a knight, helmet gleaming, swearing eternal devotion, because LinkedIn connections hadn't been invented yet. Legend casts these chain-mailed champions as living endorsements, loyal, noble, selfless. The medieval Boy Scouts on a sugar high, ready to tattoo loyalty on their sword arms at the drop of a lance. But here's the fine print no one clicks on. Feudal oaths weren't about undying devotion. They were about hedging bets. Sure, a knight might dramatically kiss his lord's ring, but ever spot one crossing fingers behind his shield during a loyalty vow? Knights, the original freelance consultants, were masters of double booking, juggling lords faster than you can say conflict of interest. Feasts and tournaments? The medieval version of calendar clashes, with knights frantically RSVPing. Sorry, can't make it, booked a better banquet. And when payday dragged or the loot looked skimpy, loyalty vanished quicker than mead at happy hour. High-ranking knights moonlighted as professional switch hitters, turning the 100 Years' War into the longest-running reality show of strategic job hopping. Some lords whispered, "Keep your options open," the 1300s equivalent of HR's trust fall. As they'd say, don't put all your swords in one scabbard. So, was knighthood about starry-eyed loyalty? Only if loyalty came bundled with land deals, slick alliances, and a well-timed exit strategy. Medieval chivalry. Less hearts and flowers, more who brought the better picnic, and maybe threw in extra acreage. So much for gallant heroes. Turns out they were just as ambitious, cunning, and opportunistic as your average office shark.